This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, my name is Jan Romano. I am the technology instructor at Mass Higher Metro North Career Centers in Woburn, Cambridge, and Chelsea, and here to do a quick Microsoft Word training part 1, what you should know and how do you do it. And so I'm going to be showing you using PowerPoint as well as jumping into Microsoft Word and showing you how to do a few things. And what is this part 1 going to cover? Let me show you. We're going to cover the ribbon. We're going to cover selecting text and formatting text, styles, margins, line spacing, spell check. So these are things that I'd like to cover. Let's see if we get through them. And this is basic, so it's a basic Word, and then I'll have a part 2 and a part 3 as well. So what I'll do is I'll shut my camera off at this time, come back at the end, and just let you focus on Microsoft Word and some of the instructions on how to do a few things. So I'm going to shut my camera off, and here we go. So the ribbon. What is the ribbon all about in Microsoft Word? Well, the ribbon is very important in Microsoft Word, and you're going to be able to highlight text and work on text, but really you need to be able to work with the ribbon. So what I did is I'm going to bring up right now a document that we're going to be using, and we're going to learn to highlight text and format this text in just a moment. But I want you to notice the ribbon is at the top of the screen. And this ribbon, you're going to be able to see, has tabs across the top, and File, Home, Insert, Design, Layout, References, Mailings, Review, View, and Help. And every time I click on those, you will see that the ribbon changes, and there are quite a few buttons in each section of the ribbon. And so really the best way to learn Microsoft Word is to learn where the buttons are on the ribbon. So as you're working in Microsoft Word, I'm always telling people to memorize or just kind of talk to yourself a little bit and say where these buttons are and what these buttons are doing. Because too many of us will just say, okay, I know there's a button somewhere. Let me just look for it and find it. And you spend so long finding the button. And then when you finally find it, you use it and you're like, where was that again? So really concentrating on each one of these tabs, knowing what's in each tab is really a good idea when you want to be proficient in Microsoft Word. So we're on the Home tab right now, as you can see, and I want to bring something to your attention. There's a group called Clipboard, Font, Paragraph, Styles, and Editing. And in each one of these groups, there are commands, which we call buttons. And these buttons do certain things. So the font group will let us change the look of our text. And the paragraph group will let us change the look of our text, but in a way of maybe aligning it, and so on. And so as we look at these groups, we want to make sure that we're remembering they're on the Home tab in the font group, and there's a certain command. So I'll bring that to your attention as we are working. And then I will jump back into my PowerPoint presentation so you can see what we're talking about. All right, so the ribbon is very important. People will work with the ribbon and, like I said, memorize it. But one thing about the ribbon that's going to be even more important is making it stay on the screen. Now you might say, well, it always stays on the screen, and it should, but just in case you come up to one of these tabs and you double click, the ribbon, as you notice, can you see it up here? It goes away. If you double click to bring it back, it'll stay. So again, I would say it's a feature, you might want to use it, but typically we say don't double click on the ribbon because the ribbon will go away, but just in case you happen to, double click to bring it back. Then what are you going to do? Well, I tell everyone to type everything in plainly into a document first. Don't even worry about the margins, don't worry about setting up the text and how large the text is. How about just use the default settings? And the default settings is typically Calibri. And so I'm going to change this real quick back to Calibri so you can see. And in this case, it's 10. And so I would use the default that Microsoft Word gives me. I would type everything in. As you can see that I just typed everything in quickly before you got here. And so I am going to now highlight this text. Well, there's several ways to highlight, as you probably know, but I'm going to bring my mouse out to the left, and I want you to notice where my mouse is. I'm bringing it out here to the left margin, and it's an arrow that's pointing to my text. If I click once, it'll highlight the entire line that I'm pointing to. If I click once, again, it highlights the entire line. If I double click, it'll highlight a paragraph. No matter how long the paragraph is, it'll highlight the paragraph. If I click and drag, it'll highlight just the lines of text that I'm pointing to. So single click, a double click, or a drag allows you to highlight. Now you can also use your keyboard if you want to. For example, Control A is a quick way to highlight the entire document no matter how many pages that you have. So why do you highlight? And another word for highlight is select. Why do you highlight and select text? Well, you want to show the software what text you're working on and that you're going to change it. So we've got enter the sweet recipe contest, and that's, if you take a look at this document, the Sweet Tooth Candy Shop is sponsoring a sweet recipe contest. And so that's the name of this flyer that we're creating right now. So I just typed all the text in, and now we're about to dress it up. So I might want to come up to the font group on the Home tab, point to this button where it says Calibri, and that's the font button. Click the down arrow and take a look at all the fonts. And there are quite a few fonts that I might want to use. And as I move my mouse around to each one of these fonts, the text will change in the background. I'm going to choose a font, and notice they go in alphabetical order, and I can scroll and take a look at all these fonts. Or if I know the font that I'm looking for, I could just type in the letter of the font, and it would go directly to that particular letter. And so there are different ways to bounce around the screen. Now I've used Kristen ITC before, and that's why it's in the recently used fonts group. So I'm going to use Kristen ITC. And notice it's just kind of a funny looking font, but it looks a little bit fun, so that's why I used it. And so now I might change the font size. So I click the down arrow, and maybe I'll just guess, and notice as I'm moving my mouse, the text is actually getting larger or smaller. So I'm going to come to maybe 22 font size and click on that. And then maybe I want everything to be in all capital letters. So this is a button that's called Change Case. So I'm going to click on the Change Case button, and maybe I'll do uppercase, which will allow me to put everything in uppercase. Now I might decide, that looks a little too big, and maybe it's not looking really the way I want it, so I'll go back to the Change Case button in the font group on the Home tab. Click the button, and maybe I'll do capitalize each word. And notice the blue squiggly underneath the word the, because a blue squiggly means it's a grammar or grammatical error, and we don't typically capitalize the word the. So maybe I want it to look like this though. So I'm going to keep it, and then I'll show you how to remove that blue squiggle. I'm going to maybe bold it, so B for bold. Maybe try italicizing, I for italicize. And I notice that it slants, and that's what italicize does, and maybe I don't like it. So I just want to remind you that the bold, the italic, and the underline buttons, so let me underline, those are toggles. You click them once to turn them on, you click them again to shut them off. Now I'm going to skip a few of these buttons, and I'm going to come over here to this button right here, which is the text color button. If I click the down arrow, maybe I want this to be red, so I choose a red color. Then I'm going to move on to the paragraph group. And in the paragraph group, there are 3 buttons that I want you to pay attention to. They are right here on the Home tab in the paragraph group, left align, center, and right align. So I'm going to click the center button, and it is going to center this text. And I think it looks pretty good, except for the word the. So what I'm going to do is click on the word the with my left mouse, and then right click. And when I right click, a menu pops up, and it has the word the without a capital letter. Maybe I want it to be a cap, so I click on ignore once. I ignore that. Please ignore. I'm asking Microsoft Word's dictionary to ignore that spelling or grammar rule, and I would like that word the capitalized. Now I'm going to click at the end of the word contest and hit enter. And I do want to bring something to your attention. If I ever type right here, it's always going to type in the same choices that I made prior. So that's why I say type everything in first, dress it up after, so that you don't run into a problem where if you're typing on the next line and you don't want it to look like the line above, you'd have to shut all of those features off. I'm just going to hit undo, and I'm going to come down here to the Sweet Tooth Candy Shop, and remember I can double click with my mouse out to the left. So now what am I going to do with this text? Well, I believe that the rest of this text here maybe should be, as I've highlighted and dragged down, maybe should be 12 font size. So I'll change this font size. Remember, Home tab in the font group, I'll change this to 12. And so now it's looking a little bit bigger. And now I can deal with just this first paragraph. So I come out to the left and I double clicked. And I'm going to go still on the Home tab, and I'm going to go to the paragraph group, and I've decided I want this text to be centered. So I'll click center. Prizes include, I've decided to highlight that and bold it. So B for bold, and make it just one font size bigger, 14. Now I've decided to highlight by dragging t-shirts down to chocolates. And maybe I want those to be a little bit larger or smaller. Remember, font, size, I can do that. Remember, I can change the color. Remember, I can change it to uppercase or lowercase. I can bold, italic, underline. I can left, center, or right. So those are the buttons that we've learned so far. And I'm going to stay in the paragraph group, and instead I'm going to show you the bullet button. Now the bullet button, I can click on it to turn it on, and notice the circles. Those are the default bullets. Click on the bullet button again to shut them off if I don't want them. I'll click on them again to turn them on, but this time I'll click the down arrow beside the bullet button, and maybe I'll choose a different bullet. And so it really depends on the type of bullet that you want. And so I'll use these arrows, and I want this text to now be more directed with an arrow. Bring your eye there, and that's a bullet. And I want people to know that the prizes are going to be t-shirts down to chocolates. Now I might want to spread this text out a little bit so people can really see it. And I'm going to go to the paragraph group again on the Home tab. Click the down arrow on this button. This is the line spacing button. And notice it says 1 or 1.15 or 1.5 or 2, and I'm going to choose 1.5 line spacing. When I click on 1.5 line spacing, you will see that this is now 1.5 line spaced. Only the text that I've highlighted has bullets and the line spacing. I'm going to come down to entering as easy as 1, 2, 3. I've decided that I want to make this 14 point size, so I click the down arrow just like I did before. I choose 14. I wanted it bold, so again on the Home tab in the font group, I click on bold. Maybe I want it double underlined, so I click the down arrow beside the underline button, and I choose double underline. Now the text underneath it, I think I'll highlight it. And I do want this to be bulleted text, but maybe with different kinds of bullets. So remember, on the Home tab, in the paragraph group, there's a bullet button. So I can turn the bullets on. Remember, the bullets as a default are circles, but if I change them, it remembers the type of bullet that I used before. Remember, if I click the down arrow on the bullet button, I can choose a different bullet. But I also want you to notice that these are actually steps. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 steps, 4 steps. So maybe I want to change these to numbers instead. So I can take the bullets off by, remember, clicking the button. It's a toggle. I turn them on, I shut them off. Beside the bullet button in the Home tab in the paragraph group is a numbering button. 1, 2, 3, it says on it. So if I click on 1, 2, 3, notice I will now have these numbered. So I can put bullets and numbering, and I can also put in different fonts, different size of fonts. And so my document is looking better and better. Now, visual interest is always something that, especially on a flyer, people are looking to look at a picture possibly to help them understand what this is all about. And so we're going to learn to add a picture. But before we do, let me go back to my PowerPoint. We've highlighted text. So here are the steps. We place the cursor in the left margin. We can drag. We can double click for a paragraph. We can single click. We can do Control A to highlight the whole text, whether it's 100 pages or just one page. We formatted the text, and so far we've used the Home tab, and we've used the font group and the paragraph group. But there are many other buttons. We don't have time to do every single one of them, but check out all the buttons in the format group, we call them. So the font tab, the paragraph tab, styles, and editing as well. We talked about line spacing. So line spacing enables you to put in an extra little bit of horizontal space in between your lines. And we will talk about margins as we continue to go forward. So let's go back to that document and change our margins. So if we take a look at this document, the margins on the left and the right and the top, let's see what they look like. So we're going to go right here to the Layout tab. First button says Margins. I want you to notice it's using what we call Office 2003 default, which means gives us a 1 1/4 inch left margin, a 1 1/4 inch right margin, and a top and a bottom margin of 1 inch. We can use any of these other choices. So notice wide right here. It's going to give me a left and right margin of 2 inches. Let's click on it and see what it looks like. And so now my text looks a little different, doesn't look lined up as well. And so maybe I don't like that. Remember, you can always hit undo. Now, what if you just wanted to change the top margin? Layout, Margins. All the way down the bottom, it says Custom Margins. So when I click on Custom Margins, up comes a dialog box where I'm able to change whatever margin I want. So I'm going to increase the top margin to maybe 1.8. I'm just guessing. Let's see what it looks like. When I click OK, that increases the top margin. Now, at the bottom right of every document, there's a scale, which is actually a zoom in and a zoom out. So there's a little minus that I can click on several times if I wanted to, or use the scale in the middle, and I could reduce the size so I can see it from top to bottom. And I like that 2-inch margin. So I'm going to make this a little bit larger. Now, I want you to notice that the word "the" has popped up again with the blue squiggly. So maybe I'm going to take this text and maybe I'll go back to Home. And instead of making it all up one word, the first letter of each word uppercase, I think I'll make it all uppercase. So I'll click on the Change Case button, make it uppercase. And I want you to notice it went into 2 lines. Oh, let's see, it's 22 font size. I'll click the down arrow where it says 22 and maybe I'll choose 20. And oh, there it goes. It puts it on 1 line. Maybe that's my preference, is to put it back on 1 line. So you can always make the changes anytime you want. You can highlight your text, go back to your Home tab, your font group, your paragraph group, and play around with your text. Now, what else would I might want to do with this document? Yes, we might want to make sure that the spelling and grammar check is on. We also want to make sure that we save it, so we'll talk about that. And oops, I thought I had directions on putting in a picture. Well, let me go back, and I will definitely make sure that we go over some of these choices. But let me show you how to put in a picture. I think that's going to be important. I'll review it in my next section as well, but I want to make sure that you know how to put a picture. Just again for visual interest. So I'm going to go to Insert from the ribbon. I'm going to click here on this Pictures button. I want to find the picture from this device. If I have my computer, I might have some pictures that I've taken that I might want to use, or I can search for pictures using online pictures. So I think that's the choice that I'll do, is online pictures. So we'll put in an online picture, and notice it says a Bing image search. So I'm going to click on Bing image and click right here in search. And I'll look for, since this is a sweet recipe contest, maybe I'll look for, let's say, a cake. And notice these pictures. Now, some of these pictures look like clip art. Some of you are familiar with that term. A clip art looks more like a drawing that somebody drew, and a photo is actually a picture of a, in this case, a cake. So I'm going to click on this cake right here, and I'll click on Insert. And this cake will pop up, and notice there it is. And there's a couple of things we need to do. The first thing we need to do is down here, it says the photo was taken basically by an unknown author. All right, I'm going to click on that text, and it's in a text box. So sometimes I'll tell people to click outside of the picture, then click again on the text. Either way works. But what you really need to do is click on the border of the text box that text is in. So I'm going to click on the border. That tells Microsoft Word everything inside that text box I want to delete. Now I'm going to hit the delete key. Oops, I hit it twice. And I don't want the cake to be deleted. I just want that text. So let me show it to you again. Okay, I hit redo. Let's see. There we go. I click on the text. I click on the border of the text. The border looks like a little dotted line. I hit my delete key on my keyboard, and the picture stays, but the text is gone. So that's the first thing we want to do. And the second thing we want to do is move this cake around and maybe size it. So in order to move it, notice this tab right here called Format. Notice this button. This button is the Wrap Text button. There's a shortcut to it here, but if I click on Format, which is a tab that pops up automatically when I have a picture, and I click on Wrap Text, it's the same as using this over here, but I'm going to click on Wrap Text because I can see the words and helps me describe what we want to do. We want to be able to put this picture in front of the text so we don't bump the text around. So I'll click on in front of, and then I'll go to a corner handle, which is down here. These little circles are called handles, and I'll drag in the direction of the arrow that shows up when I go to a handle. And now I can size it, and watch when I go to the middle and drag this, I'm able to move it around, and maybe I'll put it right here. So what if I wanted to put it right here, for example? Instead of using in front of, I might use Wrap Text, top and bottom. And that means that the text will move down. And as I move this picture, the text will only stay on the top and the bottom of the picture. So I can make this picture larger or smaller, and the text will only show on the top and the bottom. But if I really want this picture to be right here, let's get rid of that. If I really want the picture to be right here, I want you to notice the text is bouncing around. So that's when I go back and do Format, Wrap Text, in front of. And that actually allows me to put it in front of text, but actually allows me to get it to close enough to my text, and I'm not bumping the text around. So you have a decision when you have a picture where to put it and how to make the text wrap around the picture. And that's called Format, Wrap Text, or you can click on this Wrap Text button. And these buttons are, again, in front of, in top and bottom, in tight, and these are the choices that are here as well as on the menu. So either way works. So what do you think about this document right now? It's looking pretty good. All right, I might want to check for spelling errors and save it, right? So first I'm going to do File, and I'm going to do, remember when you do save, you're able to browse and put in the name of your document. And this document was called Format Exercise, And so I want to save it again as format exercise. But if it was the first time you were saving, you would give it a name. If I want to give it a new name, say I want to call this Sweet Recipe Contest for the Sweet Tooth Candy Shop. I did, if you look in this corner, I did a save as, which allows me to save it under a new name. So I've decided to take this formatted document, leave the original called Format Exercise, and now change it to Sweet Recipe Contest. So now I'll end up with two documents. Watch when I click Save. This will be my second document called at the very top, Sweet Recipe Contest for the Sweet Tooth Candy Shop. And that way there, oh, and I probably spelled the word shop wrong, so I can always edit that later. But you can see that this is a new document, and I've saved it looking like this. Now, one more thing before we go. If we want to check the spelling of a document, I like to bring up a document that has a lot of spelling errors. How do you tell if these have spelling errors in these documents? Well, this document has a lot of spelling errors. I want you to notice there are a lot of red squiggly lines as I bring my mouse through this document. Now, there are two ways to check the spelling. One way is to correct one spelling error at a time. I can right-click on the spelling error. The other is to correct all the spelling errors at the same time. So let's go back to our document and let's take a look at this spell check document. That's what I called it, and has a lot of spelling errors in it. And so I'm going to check the spelling of this first word all by itself. I'm going to right-click on it. And notice a little window pops up, so a menu pops up. Projet, project, propjet. Which one of those words should have been the right word that I was typing? And it's project. So I'm going to left-click on the word project, and Microsoft Word fixes it automatically for me. Let me show you that again. I'm going to go to development and click on it right here. I'm going to right-click. Notice the word development is here. Microsoft Word is trying to give me words that it thinks would be best fitting in that spot. What was I trying to type? Development was what I was trying to type, so I left-click on it, and it fixes the error. Now, if I have a lot of errors, though, I don't want to fix each and every one of them individually with the right mouse. Maybe I want to go to the Review tab, find this first button, the ABC Spelling and Grammar, and click on it. Notice on the right, a window pops up, and every word now is flagged, and all the corrections are sitting right here. Now, school, I'm going to hit change, and then respect, and click change. Understanding, oh, that's what it should have been. I'll click change. This word should have been one of these, and builds is the first word that it should have been, so I'll click change. This one should have been during, so I'll click change. I'm going to go through the document now, and I want you to notice that company is highlighted. Yep, it should have been company, not copay, so I click change. That word should have been progress. So I'm going to just keep clicking change right now because we're almost done with this document. And watch what happens at the end. It comes up and it says the spelling and grammar check is complete, and I click OK. Just a little bit of advice. Always read your document. Don't just depend on the spell check, because you could have typed the word for, F-O-R, and meant for, F-O-U-R. And so since that's a real word and it's spelled correctly, then Microsoft Word would have never flagged it, but that would have been not correct. And so you want to make sure that you're using the right word in the right place. So always reading it, and then you would save it. And so you would save it once you were, so you would do a file save once you were done, so you could save your corrections. All right, so that is the basics of Microsoft Word. I want to show you that we went through the ribbon. We went through selecting text and formatting text, margins, line spacing, and spell check. Now, when would you use styles? Styles are a quick way to dress up your document. So why don't I jump back to that spell check document and show you quickly what a style might be. I might highlight my text, go back to my Home tab. Maybe I'll highlight this paragraph. Go back to the Home tab and look in this group of styles right here. Now I'm going to click this down arrow, which is the More button, and look at these styles. These are fonts and colors and sizes of text that I can use to dress up my document. So I like this choice, the Intense Quote. Notice it gives me a blue line at the top and bottom. My text is blue, it's centered, and maybe I might even bold it after I'm done with it. And that is a quote. So let's say I have a bunch of quotes in my document. Watch, I will take and come down and highlight some additional text down here on page 2. And let's say that's a quote. Well, all I have to do is click this down arrow, find that intense quote again, click, maybe bold it because I like bolding, and there you go. Any quote has now been dressed up and it's consistently formatted. Same thing with headings. Benefits for the volunteer. Maybe I'm taking a look at my fonts and I want it to look like a strong title. So I click on strong. Or maybe I want it to look like an intense emphasis. So now I can take and dress up each one of these to look very quickly like an intense emphasis style. So let's say all these questions. I want those to look, let's say, I'll use this choice. And so when I click intense reference, each one of these now will be quickly, all I'm doing is highlighting and quickly clicking on the style that I want. And each question is now formatted consistently using styles. Maybe I want the North Country project to have a different look. So I might go and choose what we call a title and maybe even then center it. So I formatted this very quickly, haven't I, using styles. And the nice thing about styles is it's consistently dressing up, formatting your document. And then of course I would save it. So taking a look at these, hopefully you've decided that these topics were things that you want to practice, because I highly recommend that you practice and that you are taking Microsoft Word and creating documents that are important to you and using these basic Microsoft Word skills. Now, I do want to thank you very much. I'm going to go to my last slide here quickly. Oops, came all the way out, didn't I? All right, here we go. And I just wanted to say thank you. Let me turn my camera back on. And I just want to say thank you so very much for joining me with going over the basics of Microsoft Word. And we do have live events, so check our our MassHire Career Center websites, and you'll see that on my screen. And also we are in Cambridge, Chelsea, and Woburn and doing some remote training. And hopefully we'll be able to see you in the future. Look for part 2 of Microsoft Word, and I'll be putting that on YouTube very soon. Thank you. Thanks for joining me, everybody.